Breaking news just moments ago, a fresh look at the U.S. economy. Long-awaited data on the labor market showing that the unemployment rate rose to a 4-year high last month. And while the economy did add jobs in November, data shows that there have been job losses in 3 of the last 6 months. Right now, 7.8 million Americans are out of work. CNN's Matt Egan has much more on what really has been a flood of data that came in this morning. What else are you seeing in this report, Matt?
Well, Kate, this report really confirms that the U.S. job market remains in a precarious place. Unemployment is rising and hiring is sluggish at best. Now, the big number here is 4.6%. That is the new unemployment rate as of November, unexpectedly jumping from 4.4% in September. Now, 4.6%, that's the highest level in just over 4 years. You can see on that chart how there has been this steady increase in the unemployment rate over the last year or two. Now, we also learned that the U.S. economy during the month of October lost 105,000 jobs. Now, this was driven entirely by the government and largely by the fact that DOGE had a federal buyout program for federal workers, and those workers came off the payrolls at the end of September. So we were expecting a significant drag from the government in October, and we did get that. Private sector hiring in October was positive. This was all about the government. In November, the only piece of slightly good news here is that hiring did rebound during the month of November. The U.S. economy adding 64,000 jobs. That's a bit ahead of the forecast of 40,000. However, there were also more negative revisions. September was revised slightly lower. August went from negative 4,000 to negative 26,000. So when you look at the trend here, and you can see it on that chart, it's really been very bumpy recently. In fact, the U.S. economy has now lost jobs in 3 out of the past 6 months. That's after going more than 4 years without any months of job loss. In fact, when you look at the year-to-date average, it's about 55,000 jobs per month that the U.S. economy has added this year. That's very low. In fact, that's the lowest since 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. And before that, you have to go back to 2009. So on track for a very weak year of hiring. And just quickly looking at the sectors here, the good news is that healthcare continues to add jobs, adding another 64,000 jobs in November. Construction was up as well, but government continues to shed jobs. Leisure and hospitality, that's bars and restaurants, down by 12,000. Transportation and warehousing also negative. And so was manufacturing. So, Kate, when you put it all together, this paints the picture of a job market that continues to really stumble here. Back to you.
Yeah. Matt, thank you so much for pulling it all together for us. A lot more to come from this data just released this morning.
I want to welcome Sean Baker, who's a senior economist for the Center for Economic and Policy Research, and he's here to break down the numbers, take us through what this ultimately means. It's really good to have you with us. I mean, and frankly, I'm looking at the non-farm payrolls for November, 64,000 higher. In October, down 105,000. You've got unemployment at 4.6%. How is this playing into the health of the U.S. economy, and does this show signs of whether things are perhaps getting slightly back on track?
Well, it's hard to make sense of these 2 months in isolation because you did have the shutdown, which is a very unusual event, the government shutdown, of course. But if you look at the longer term trend, we clearly have a weakening labor market. So many of us, meaning economists, we're focused more on the household survey, the unemployment data, because we know the labor force is growing much less rapidly due to conscious policy, immigration. You know, we've reversed the Trump administration is trying to deport people and slowed immigration to a trickle. But a 4.6% unemployment rate is unambiguously bad news. And you look inside that, you know, different measures, the employment rate, Trump's made a big point of saying, okay, we care about native-born workers. The unemployment rate for native-born workers is 0.3% above the year-ago level. You look at other measures, the number of people, multiple job holders, it's at 5.8%, the highest it's been since the 90s. That suggests people feel they need additional jobs. Wage growth has slowed, 3.5% year over year. It had been around 4%. With an inflation rate around 3%. We'll find that on Thursday. That means very little real wage growth. So it's definitely a weakening labor market. So the last 2 months, again, are hard to figure, but taking a longer period, there's no doubt the labor market is definitely weakening.
Yeah, I mean, it's very messy on the data front, as you say. I want you to listen to Caroline Levitt yesterday after Caitlin Collins had asked a question around why the Trump administration is playing down the cost of living experience for Americans. Take a listen to this.
If the economy is as strong as the president has said it is, then why is he telling parents 2 weeks before Christmas that they should only buy 2 or 3 dolls for their children?
Look, what the president is saying is that if we want products made right here in America, if we want them to be made from American small businesses, which is a large part of the reason the president has effectively implemented tariffs, then we're going to have better quality products right here in the United States. Maybe you'll pay $1 or $2 more, but you will get better quality and you'll be supporting your fellow Americans.
So, Dean, this is super interesting because she's talking about reindustrializing the economy and increasing manufacturing jobs. By the way, manufacturing jobs are actually coming under pressure. And then, of course, she actually went on to start talking about inflation, that it's slightly lower, but it is still sticky. I'm wondering whether you believe the Trump economic policy is causing short-term pain, or would you say it's longer-term pain that is going to be inflicted?
Well, it's certainly causing short-term pain, and we continue to lose manufacturing jobs. We're down about 70,000 year over year. We lost jobs in November, manufacturing jobs in November. Maybe they'll turn around. It's hard to see that. Again, I referred to wage growth slowing. That's not a good story. As economists, we like to look at what people are doing rather than what they're saying. I think I mentioned before, the number of multiple job holders rose to 5.8%, the highest we've seen since 1999, and that's a long time. Very different labor market. People aren't quitting their jobs. The quit rate's down to a share of people quitting unemployment due to quits is 11%. It was at 13.8% back in 2018, 2019 when we had a comparably strong labor market. These are not signs of a strong labor market. So again, sure, anything could happen going forward, but it doesn't look good with all the data we have in front of us.
The Fed cutting rates by 25 basis points last week. Are you expecting that these numbers are perhaps, showing that there's a need for more rate cuts and deeper rate cuts in 2026?
I would, given the data we have today, I would say more rate cuts would certainly be warranted. Now, on Thursday, we get the inflation data. We'll have to see what that looks like. Myself, I'm always much more concerned about unemployment than inflation, but I understand the Fed has to be concerned about both, which I am as well. And we've been above the Fed's 2% inflation target for about 5 years, and there's no reason I think we're about to get down to it anytime soon. So they have a tough call. Again, for me, I consider the unemployment issue far more important. I mean, inflation's not about to take off, even though it's higher than their 2% target. But if they take the 2% target seriously, that's a real problem for them.
Yeah. Dean Baker, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for your insights.